Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday to you on this Labor Day weekend. For Brenden Schaeffer, I'm Luke Slabaugh here on Card Central 365, presented by DraftKings and powered by Graybar. Brenden, you are out in the countryside today. What are you and the family getting up to on this Sunday?
Yeah, we like to spend these holiday weekends at the farm. I think over 4th of July weekend, it was me and Grant. I was out here from the picnic table, and it always makes for an interesting dynamic. But especially today, as the Cardinals, man, in about an hour, will have a chance to potentially grab a series sweep. And that's sort of what we've been saying is, yeah, we kind of write off the end of this season until or unless the Cardinals really go on a run. So maybe a run like that is starting this weekend out in Cincinnati, and they can find a way to cap it today.
Three-game win streak could be four with the sweep of the Cincinnati Reds, and they turn the ball over to Andre Palante, having by far his worst month. He's lost every start this month in August. ERA in the high nines, 982. And Jeremy Hodge commenting here live on YouTube. Let's hope Palante has a better start today than the last one. In your opinion, Brenden, what is the key to getting Andre Palante back on track?
Man, it feels like he is grasping at straws right now. When you look at the last four starts, you mentioned it, it's been a really difficult August for him. And then you can even go back to a July that primarily was a struggle. 3 out of the 5 that he had in July were really tough. So it's been relatively prolonged at this point for Palante to have these struggles. And really, I feel like in the past, when you could identify what was going south with him during periods like this, it was okay, I got to figure out a way to handle right-handed batters better. I'm pretty good against lefties. It's the righties that get me. Right now, I feel like he is lost without a compass, no matter who is up at the plate. It's interesting that the Cardinals make this decision because I was at Busch Stadium on Tuesday this past week. That was a tough one for Palante. And after the game, Oliver Marmol really sounded like he was at a loss as well to explain the path forward. And yet the Cardinals do decide to stick with Palante in this spot. And you could identify that as just being a case where the Cardinals aren't in a great spot in the standings right now, and they do have to consider 2026. And for Palante, a guy that's going to make a little more money in arbitration next year than he did in 2025, you probably do have a decision looming for him as to how he proceeds with the organization and vice versa. So the Cardinals are at least giving him a shot again against big league pitching or hitting, excuse me. And I think that's the only way to identify if he can actually find some gradual improvements. He talked after that game on Tuesday, though, Luke, about the fastball and being able to locate it a little bit more effectively to get guys off the barrel. I think really that's going to be the biggest key for him today. Rather than leaking that thing over the middle, you really do have to hit your spots and hit the corners with that because it's just been a pitch that guys have been able to square up recently. And really, we know that Andre Palante is a contact-oriented guy, but the type of contact that he's been giving up is just not sustainable to be able to find success at this level. So I think that's number one. Fastball has got to be off the barrel today if he's going to find success.
It's going to be imperative given they're playing at the Great American Small Park out there in Cincinnati. Michael
Yeah.
McGreevy last night, the right-hander, doing a good job keeping the ball on the ground with 12 ground ball outs. But to your point, yeah, Andre Palante approaching arbitration, turns 27 in a couple of weeks. A student of the game, has at his best been a pitch maker who looks like a good middle of the rotation starter. And the wheels fall off. It can kind of be rough to see because he does give up hard contact and they square it up pretty well, the opposing batters do. A couple of other things today, looking forward to the lineup as they were released a few minutes ago. We'll see the first major league plate appearance from Oklahoma alum Jimmy Crooks catching Palante behind the plate, and then Cesar Prieto hitting in the sixth spot behind Thomas Sajaci, playing second base for his first big league start. What are you anticipating to see in those rookies getting some playing time?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting spot for both of these guys. Jimmy Crooks has been one of the top catching prospects for the Cardinals for a while, and kind of waiting to see when he would get that shot. And it is interesting that it comes with Palante because Palante's obviously struggled, and maybe it's a case where they say, "Hey, well, try to throw something different at him to sort of change the dynamic of it, change the vibe." But we know that Jimmy Crooks brings a good bat with him. We'll be interested to see that side of things from him as well. Prieto, we know he can hit. I mean, that's really been the calling card on him in the minors. And so to see the degree to which that translates today and really over the next month, if he gets a prolonged stint with the Cardinals, I think is valuable because he's one of those guys that may be in limbo when it comes to the organizational hierarchy. The Cardinals obviously have guys like Weatherholt on the way that you figure, okay, he's going to kind of lap a fellow like Prieto in the pecking order. But before you get to this offseason where a lot of key decisions about the roster are going to need to be made, would love to see a guy like Prieto get a chance because he's been good bat to ball in AAA. And even though he has some maybe limitations defensively, he does still bring a little bit of versatility where he can slot in there for you across your infield. So, look, if this is a guy that takes to the big league pitching that he faces and finds a way to be productive at the plate, it at least gives Chaim Bloom another something to think about when it comes to this offseason and the way he might be able to organize that 40-man roster. It's a good little showcase for Prieto as well. I'm excited to see both these guys.
Yeah, one of the pieces in the Jack Flaherty trade a couple of years ago. Nice infield bat, hitting 290 in the minors, over 474 games down there before getting the call up. Uh, Injuries necessitated this. You got Burleson with the wrist injury. Joel Pozo on the concussion list took one off the mask in the previous series against Pittsburgh. So it was kind of necessitated that these guys get called up just to fill a roster spot. But in your mind, how much runway would you give these players, or how often would you start them as you look into the final month and you're going in below 500?
Yeah, and I think when Pozo comes back, it's going to be September at that point, and so you can have 28 on your active roster at that point rather than just the 26. And so when I'm thinking long term about the month of September, I would want to see Jimmy Crooks stay for the rest of the year. I think he can gain more from being in that big league environment, even if he's only playing a couple of times per week, rather than having him go back to Memphis for 3 weeks and play every day. I think we've seen Jimmy Crooks get a lot of run down there in AAA, and maybe just as a catcher, especially who they have to consider for 2026. What's his role going to be? What's he competing to do when he gets to spring training in Jupiter? Having him soak up that big league environment, see how a guy like Pedro Pajes prepares on the day that he's catching a starter, see how Pedro Pajes prepares on the days that he isn't catching a starter. To be able to witness that, I think, is valuable for Crooks. For Prieto, it's interesting. Like, yes, I'd love to see him get to play as much as he can, but there are certainly others above him in the pecking order where you're wanting to see some of those guys get opportunities as well if you have a full complement on your roster. What's interesting, Luke, is there are guys right now like Donovan, like Arenado, guys that you tentatively expect to see relatively soon, but also if things don't progress for those players, you get further and further into September, you could shut down some guys that, maybe it just doesn't become worth it to push through anymore. Right? I mean, obviously, Mason Winn has been pushing through with his knee as well. If that infield contingent finds that some of the injured players maybe aren't returning, and you could add to that list if other guys should be banged up as well, Prieto is a perfectly viable guy to get a decent amount of runway in September. Not because I'm anticipating that he'll be a massive part of the Cardinal future, but because he has shown enough in AAA that it seems worthwhile to at least explore if you don't have a lot of other mainstays that are available in your lineup for the rest of the way.
As the old adage goes, if you can hit, they will find a spot for you. Want to give a shout out to our main sponsor today, and that is DraftKings. The crown is yours. Missouri, get ready. The wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State, and today you can sign up. New customers in Missouri can get $300 in bonus bets when we launch on December 1st. Download now and place a $5 bet when we go live. DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you need to elevate your game day: live in game betting, lightning fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when we officially go live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app trusted by millions. Safe, secure, and with fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when they go live on December 1st. That's code STLSPORTS in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. One interesting bit that you had mentioned and has been the narrative in August, Brendan, as we continue Cards 365, is Mason Winn. not in the lineup today with this chronic knee pain that he says he has dealt with since high school. At what point is enough enough? When do you close the book on Mason Winn's season or phase him out of the lineup to help try to rectify this issue?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Luke. And I don't know if there's a perfect answer for it. As Gary mentions, hey, let's get the win today. We're back in the hunt. Like, there's still this element from a team perspective. If you're Mason Winn, and he's talked about this, I think he handles it really appropriately when it comes to, sort of getting that question from the media. And last week he said, look, there's a lot of guys on this team banged up. I don't really feel like it's my place to take myself out at this point. Like, fans are looking to me, the clubhouse is looking to me. He takes on that leadership role and kind of takes ownership of that, even for a younger player. I think is pretty impressive. The other aspect of this that I do believe is very real and it's legitimate. If you're Mason Winn, he should win the Gold Glove this year. He has been the best defensive shortstop in the National League. Do you, though, if you take yourself out of the running in early September, run the risk of another shortstop making some flashy plays over the course of the rest of the season, and then you get the waters are a little bit muddied, and you say, well, Mason only played 5 of the 6 months, and then Winn doesn't win that award that he frankly deserves. It is a little bit tricky, right? Because that's a personal accolade versus what's best for the team and what's best for his future. I suspect that Mason Winn is going to need some sort of, and this is purely speculative, but is there going to be maybe like a cleanup procedure, some type of minor under the knife situation for him in that knee this offseason? It seems possible at this point that to get to the other side of this truly, it may take something like that. Now, if that's the case, what's the recovery time on that? Because if you can get a 1 month jump on something like that, if it should become necessary, does that position you more effectively for February 26th? If it does, that's where you go, all right, Mason Winn, the Cardinals may not be in it for this year, but next year it's wide open, right? You have every opportunity to come in and be a winning team in 2026. Is it worth it to continue? I think as long as they have confidence, Luke, that he's not going to make anything worse, right? If it's pain tolerance, then what's the harm? But if there is that risk that you potentially kind of mitigate by not continuing to roll out there, it's a conversation for sure. But I trust Mason Winn to kind of know how important, like as much as he wants to win a Gold Glove, I also think he has an unbelievably sharp, long range view of what his career looks like. And I don't think he's going to put anything at undue risk when it comes to that. So if it is just mostly about the Gold Glove, you gut it out for a couple more weeks. You make a few more web gems, and then you maybe pack it in for the last 2 weeks. Maybe the intermittent rest, though, Luke, that the Cardinals are giving him out of the lineup today is something that can allow him to make it through the end of the season. I just would hate to see something happen where you get to the end of the year, it does require some sort of cleanup, and then you get to winter warm up in January with a question of whether or not he's ready for day one of spring. I think the team doctors and everybody, though, Luke, is going to have a good handle on what that looks like. So I, for one, am just glad to keep watching Mason Winn make dazzling defensive plays for as long as we get to here in 2025. But it's a very valid question that sort of hangs over what the Cardinals will look like for the next month.
Very refreshing to hear Mason Winn's comment and attitude towards this in the era of load management and guys getting routine days off, not the way the game used to be played. By the way, we appreciate all of you tuning in here on this Sunday morning. For those of you who are fans of Big Noon Kickoff on Saturdays, this is an 11:10 first pitch against the Reds. We got daily content, Cards 365, the Randy Carricker Show, sometimes with Brooke Grinsley, sometimes with Matt Rocchio, sometimes with whoever we can find, the Bernie Miklasz Show. We got B. Schaefer Daily, of course, on YouTube as well. Brenden Schaeffer, with more than a decade of coverage of St. Louis sports, doing fantastic. I had an idea that I floated out to Stephen Carey the other night when the Cardinals took game one of this series, Brendan. Mason Winn is a guy who this season is hitting over 300 with runners in scoring position, 280 when you add two outs to that equation. He has not hit cleanup in each of the last two seasons. And rather than try to project him into this leadoff role, as 0 for 5 last night, sadly, it feels like he doesn't profile as the big, burly, Ruthian cleanup hitter. However, with great bat to ball skills and a no clear cut cleanup hitter, Wilson Contreras, 20 home runs perhaps. Could that be in this turnaround phase of the Cardinals a good spot for Mason Winn?
Yeah, it would be sort of a modern approach, right? Where you don't feel like he's a prototypical guy for that spot. I know too, they always want to go and alternate with the lefties and the righties as much as they possibly can. Herrera has sort of settled into a two-hole spot, but we've seen his bat kind of come and go ever since that big time start to the season that he had. I think if you were to align it in a way that made sense, I just wonder though if generally you're going to want to bump a guy like Contreras down that much further. Like, if you have confidence in Gorman, could you bump him to 3? Maybe Winn goes to 4, but that probably puts Contreras down to 5 or 6. There's a number of ways to do it. I would say if they looked at Herrera and said, "Man, his numbers have tailed off a bit relative to what they were in the first half." If you were to go, whether it's Newbar today or like a Brendan Donovan when he gets back to health, maybe Contreras slides up to 2, which they had tried for a while and wasn't as productive. I'm convinced Contreras could hit just about anywhere though. Contreras 2, Gorman 3, Winn 4, and then Herrera maybe slots into 6 if you find a lefty for that 5 hole. At full health, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it for the reason you're saying, right? You're just trying to say, hey, there's going to be guys in scoring position. Mason Wynn's a guy that limits the strikeout for the most part and can put the bat to the ball. Honestly, I think trying some different things like that, you could do a lot worse toward the end of the season where the Cardinals are trying to get a feel for what maybe the future may look like.
We'll go ahead and plaster the starting lineup here in front of our beautiful faces. Lars Nootbaar leading off, playing left. Ivan Herrera, DHing Contreras at first. Gorman, third base, batting cleanup. Thomas Ajacey in the 5 hole. Cesar Prieto, batting sixth, playing second base. Jordan Walker out and right, hitting seventh. Jimmy Crooks with his first major league plate appearance incoming at catcher, batting eighth. And then Nathan Church with the clutch 2-run go-ahead single last night, batting ninth, playing center field. Andre Palante, the right-hander, gets the bump. Final thoughts, Brenden Schaeffer, as we wrap up Cards 365, this lineup, and the Cardinals going for a sweep.
I mean, yeah, this is a lineup that coming into the year, you probably wouldn't have said this is our contending A lineup if you're the Cardinals, but they're not really contending and they're going through a lot of injuries right now. So to win a game like this, Luke, and to be able to cap a series sweep, that often seems like a difficulty when you're the Cardinals and you're kind of on that, you win a couple, lose a couple trajectory. If they can find a way to really dial in and take claim of this series sweep, and then you move on and try to continue the momentum. I think that would be significant, particularly with a lineup again that it feels a little top heavy today in terms of experience, production, however you want to slice it. After you cut it off at Gorman in the cleanup spot, there is a lot of uncertainty unknown beyond him in the batting order today. I will say this, Palante is really the name of the game for me today, and watching to see how the Cardinals perform. It has been such a struggle for him. He's a guy that he's an intense competitor. I don't know if people kind of look at him and go, he's just kind of a whatever. Doesn't really look like a big league ball player the way you feel like a lot of guys. This dude is intense. He is competitive. He wants to win. It's eating him up right now that he's not. And so I would love to see him be able to go out there and shove. Luke, I think he might need a strikeout or two. I don't know how McGreevy and the Cardinals did it yesterday. A win without a single strikeout. If that is not just like exactly on the nose for what we kind of complain about with this Cardinals team to say, where's all the swing and miss over the years? Dude, they win that game without a strikeout. I don't know if I've seen that in a while.
Last time that happened was 2019 and a loss to the Mets. It is less
hard,
than
hard to
sexy.
do.
However, a win is a win. Want to thank you all for tuning in here on this Sunday morning. 11:10 first pitch against Brady Singer, the right-hander in the Reds. Brady Singer, former Royals legend with 2 quality starts against the Cardinals this year already. He's Brenden Schaeffer. Make sure you subscribe to his YouTube, Be Schaef Daily. He is a contributor here all the time, all things Cardinals, a decade of St. Louis sports coverage. I'm Luke Slabaugh. I'm just a guy. And I want to say thank you all for tuning in here to Cards Central 365. We're presented by DraftKings. Have a good one, and I'll see you right back here for the post-game show. Take care.